AI note-takers sound similar in a demo now. They all promise transcripts, summaries, action items, and searchable memory. But in real business use, the gap gets obvious fast. Some feel like a clean assistant you keep open all day. Some feel heavier than they need to. Some are great free entry points, and some only make sense for one kind of team. So this ranking is not about hype. It is about which tool actually earns a place in your weekly operating rhythm. For small businesses, the real value is not just getting a transcript. It is turning live conversations into usable business memory. You want decisions to be searchable later. You want follow-up to happen faster. You want client context, internal decisions, recruiting notes, and sales calls to stop disappearing into scattered docs and half-finished notes. The best tools reduce admin, improve recall, and help a lean team behave like a more organized company. I scored these on 5 things. Ease of use because adoption matters. Value because this category gets expensive once you roll it out to a team. Small business fit because a lot of software is really designed for larger orgs with more admin patience. Feature depth because some buyers do need search, integrations, coaching, or workflow structure. And speed to value because if the payoff is not obvious quickly, most teams stop caring. The first split is bot versus bot-free workflow. Some teams do not care at all, and some founders absolutely do. The second split is personal workflow versus team process. A founder tool and a manager tool are not the same thing. The third split is general meeting memory versus revenue or coaching workflow. If you mix those categories together, everything starts looking interchangeable. If you keep them separate, the right choice gets much easier. Fireflies holds the top spot because it stays balanced where a lot of competitors lean too hard in one direction. It is useful for founders, managers, client teams, and internal ops without forcing you into a very specific workflow identity. The product story still centers on recording, summaries, search, integrations, and team visibility, and that mix matters. If you want one note-taker that most small businesses can pilot quickly and keep using as the company grows, Fireflies remains the safest first tab to open. The case for Fireflies is simple. It gives you enough depth to feel durable, enough usability to get adopted, and enough team logic to avoid feeling like a solo note tool. The reason to look elsewhere is not that Fireflies is weak. It is that another product may match your workflow better. If you hate bots, Granola is more appealing. If you want a free first test drive, Fathom is easier. But for the average small business buyer, Fireflies is still the best overall answer. Granola stays near the top because it is one of the few products in this category that feels clearly designed around the experience of the person actually in the meeting. The bot-free positioning matters. The lighter, more personal workflow matters. And the fact that it feels built for back-to-back operators, consultants, and founders matters. If your note-taker is mainly for you, not for a whole org chart, Granola has one of the strongest product stories in the category. Granola earned second place because the product experience is so strong for the right buyer. The trade-off is that it is not trying to be the most workflow-heavy team system in the group. If you want more structured meeting operations, Fellow is stronger. If you want broader default coverage across a company, Fireflies is safer. But if your real question is which tool a founder will keep using every day, Granola is still the best answer in the lineup. Otter keeps its spot because it is still the mainstream all-rounder. People already know what it does, which lowers internal education cost. The current product and pricing story still centers on transcripts, summaries, AI workflows, and team plans that scale up in a familiar way. That makes Otter a strong option for businesses that want a known quantity instead of a more opinionated workflow. It may not feel as sharp as Granola or as balanced as Fireflies, but it is still easy to explain and justify. That is really the Otter story. It is dependable, legible, and broad. The reason it lands behind Fireflies and Granola is not because it is bad. It is because the top two have a clearer identity. Fireflies wins on balanced business value. Granola wins on founder experience. Otter wins when you want something the team will accept immediately, with less education and less taste-driven debate about workflow. For many buyers, that is still a good enough reason to choose it. Fellow stays in the top half because it is not just selling notes. It is selling better meeting operations. That distinction matters for managers, team leads, agencies with repeat client rhythms, and any small business that wants meetings to produce cleaner follow-through. The strength here is structure. Prep, recurring meetings, action items, and process discipline are part of the value proposition. So if your business problem is sloppy meetings, not just missing notes, Fellow deserves serious consideration. That is why Fellow sits behind Otter for most buyers but ahead of the bottom two. It is extremely coherent for the right organization. It is just more specific. If the company values agendas, action items, and repeated meeting hygiene, Fellow can punch above its rank. If the team mainly wants fast summaries and searchable transcripts, it may feel heavier than necessary. Choose Fellow when process quality is part of the purchase decision, not just note capture. Fathom ranks this high because the buying motion is so simple. The free plan is generous enough to remove hesitation, the value is easy to feel quickly, and the product story is still built around fast summaries, follow-up help, and broad meeting support. That makes it incredibly strong for businesses that are curious about the category but not ready to standardize yet. If you want the lowest friction starting point that still feels legit, Fathom remains the best free first entry in the group. That is the real trade-off. Fathom is excellent at getting you into the category with very little resistance. It is not the product I would default to for a more mature team with more structured needs. Fireflies scales more comfortably as the all-round default. Fellow is better for process. But if budget sensitivity is high and you want to test the category without a painful procurement conversation, Fathom is still the easiest recommendation to make. tldv keeps the sixth spot, but the framing is more specific than before. The current product story leans much harder into sales meetings, coaching, CRM sync, and revenue intelligence than into generic note capture. That is not a weakness. It just means you should buy it for the right reason. If your business lives in DMOS, call reviews, pipeline visibility, or sales coaching, tldv becomes a lot more interesting than its rank alone suggests. That is why tldv stays behind Fathom in this ranking. For general small business use, it is simply more specialized. But if you are on a sales-heavy team, that specialization can be exactly the reason to pick it. So I would not frame tldv as the best general-purpose note-taker. I would frame it as the best option here for teams that want meeting notes to reinforce sales review, coaching, and pipeline visibility without buying something that feels like a huge enterprise system. Here is the simplest way to make the decision. Start with Fireflies if you want the safest default for a growing small business. Pick Granola if the buyer is mostly an individual founder, consultant, or operator who wants a cleaner personal workflow. Pick Otter if familiarity and easy internal adoption matter most. Pick Fellow if you are trying to improve meeting discipline across a team. Pick Fathom if you want the easiest free first test drive. Pick tldv if the goal is better sales visibility and coaching. If I were helping a small business choose quickly, I would narrow it like this. Fireflies is the broad default. Granola is the founder favorite. Fathom is the easy free trial of the category. Fellow is the structured team pick. That means most buyers can ignore half the market right away. If you are sales-heavy, add tldv to the shortlist. If you want a familiar mainstream option, keep Otter in the conversation. The goal is not to sample every tool. It is to test the right tools. Supernormal is the honorable mention. It is not a bad product at all. If you want another structured note and workflow option, it is worth a look. It just did not beat the clarity of the top 6 for this ranking. That matters because the best buyer guide is not the one with the biggest list. It is the one that helps you stop evaluating faster. So I would treat Supernormal as a challenger, not as a mandatory tab in your first round. My final take is simple. If you want the safest business answer, start with Fireflies. If you want the best founder experience, look hard at Granola. If you want the easiest free first entry, start with Fathom. And if you are buying for meeting process or sales review, let that shape the choice before anything else. Test the tools that fit your real workflow and do not confuse more features with a better decision.